Alright, draft science physics video. Was going to do Ken Wheeler, but then Daftloday stumbled into, stumbled. That's all he can really do is stumble. Oh yes, got to make sure we speed him up because he does drone on a bit slowly. So, we'll go fast. Anyway, so I watched a couple of seconds of this. I saw that where it's going, same old routine. Let's waste time talking nonsense. Why don't you just provide some sort of evidence? The most recent video done was the one on the 60 symbols thing, and there's just some points in there just so obvious about how these really smart scientists, physicists, really haven't thought about what they're talking about. I mean, the idea of suns in binary systems supernovaing and then the binary system somehow staying intact. How does that, it is so nonsensical, and to not get a concession from these assholes that yes, that's talking shit, and that a lot of what physics is doing is just talking shit. I mean, it's just amazing the lack of honesty regarding the incredulity of physics. I mean, it's just incredible.
Come on, man. You're being insane.
Right, I'm the insane one, and I'm the one who doesn't think that binary systems stay intact when one of the partners supernovas, and then a few years later the other one supernovas. And I'm the insane one? I'm the one talking insanity? No, sorry.
Insane, willful ignorance.
Yes, whatever. Again, ignorance of what? The fact that gravity can't be pushed into the universe by moving something? I can't make this cup have more gravity by moving it? Does it make it more gravitational? I'm being willfully ignorant? No, you are being a turd.
I wouldn't say that unless I thought there was a chance.
I don't care. I mean, I just really don't. I just want an argument. You can't make a counter argument, then forget it. And all your argument is they don't really mean what they say. Even though I could play you hours of Jim Kalahari for the BBC talking about how this is how we prove this, and this is how we now know this, and we now know this, and we know this, and this is how we, I mean, this is just such a crock of shit. There's no humility in fucking physics. If you think there's some humility in there somewhere, you're the fucking one who's insane. They're insanely arrogant in their belief systems. They're fanatically, religiously devoted to their fucking ideas. Entanglement.
Well, you snapping out of it, I guess. Because, I think I'm a victim of certain insanities myself.
Yes, I think you are, and a victim probably of some kind of, disorder of having a fat head. You have fat in your brain, and it's, it has an obvious consequence. It makes your brain slimy and stupid.
And the idea is to be at least somehow aware of them and navigate them, and I see that.
Yeah, whatever. You can see what, I don't care. I mean, really. If you see that, then you're just demonstrating that you can't see straight either, and so you probably need a new set of glasses because these aren't working for you. All right, because I'm not interested in this fucking horseshit of philosophy and psychology. This is an argument about what physical reality is made out of, and that's based on evidence. And my argument over and over and over again is that the evidence is incredibly weak, and you have no right to have these hard conclusions, especially when your theories are in conflict with each other, unlike mine, which unifies, which gives it an edge over your bullshit. A huge edge.
DraftScience in Mendham, at times, an effort to not be as crippled by these insanities.
Whatever. Again, this notion that I need your help, to see the truth or some sort of light, when you're the ones living in the fat darkness. You're the ones who, are living in the matrix of illusionary staircases to nowhere.
is your willful ignorance. Why do I say willful?
Oh, say again, this idea that I'm somehow ignorant when I'm obviously smart enough to think of the idea of why didn't they ever test the LIGO device with simple ideas of moving heavy masses around the mirrors? Why don't we have evidence of these tests that they could actually detect material objects moving that were really close, and then they'd have some argument about being able to detect stuff moving, material objects moving 5 billion light years away. Why didn't they do the close things first? Yeah, so at least I'm not willfully ignorant of the idea that before you spend $1 billion on something, maybe you ought to test the fucking theory a little bit.
Because you're choosing not to hear Feynman and lots of others.
Well, whatever. This Feynman's the god of what? The god of evasion and bullshit. Oh, all right. So it doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't unify. So their theories are not compatible. Just do your fucking mathematical equations and figure out some obtuse and obscure, meaningless conclusion. That isn't even accurate, as I've demonstrated with the two-slit experiment. You do the math and it doesn't even come up with the right answer. But who cares? Do the math for what purpose? For what accomplishment? This isn't like doing circuit boards or something, okay? That math is 200 years old. Their bullshit math has absolutely no value, and it's supposed to be having some value in representing a model of reality. That's its only truth value. It's the only value it has is as truth value. If it's not the truth, it has no fucking value. These meaningless experiments about meaningless results, about meaningless nonsense. Fuck. And everything else that comes out of it that's of any use, the evidence is overwhelmingly demonstrates throughout all of human history that most of that stuff is learned through accidents, by doing the experiments and then fucking with the experiment, changing the dials a little bit, and then you figure out, oh, I can make a different kind of electron telescope, and I can improve it, and I can make it work better by tweaking this or sticking this piece of metal in. You know, they don't think the theory first and then invent. They invent and then figure the theory.
And lots of others you've probably not heard of who study the philosophy of science.
So again, I have made it as clear as possible. As soon as you say philosophy of science, I just see a big puddle of diarrhea. I'm saying, what the fuck is that nonsense? It's either an accurate description of reality you're looking for, or it's not. If you're looking for a better anal cream, okay, or some sort of fat remover you could rub on your fucking head, yeah, that's your business, okay? You're looking for something practical out of this, or you're looking to make model airplanes that fly better. I don't give a fuck. I'm looking for the fucking truth, asshole. And this has your conversation about some sort of philosophy of science. It has nothing to do with the truth, because you don't even understand the philosophy actually testing a theory before you spend $1 billion on it and create a bunch of people who are real horny to find the results. And you also don't validate Einstein's theory by having the guy who's a devotee, a minion, do your proof experiments. That these conflicts of interest are a little bit fucking obvious. These conflicts of purpose. Oh yes, spend billions of dollars and then find the Higgs boson. What a fucking surprise.
We appreciate that we're dealing with models, and that science never really claims the truth.
Okay, let's just say, science never really claims, except every single talking head, every single lecturer in every single university. Feynman himself, he just mentioned Feynman. Feynman was just emphatic about, well, the truth is that, yes, you do the math and we can't know, and Heisenberg and some other kind of crap, and duality. He stated plenty of truths.
That you think it does. Yes, it sounds to the layperson, and it's designed to sound like to the layperson, like the...
Well, then what's the conversation about? If that's not bad on the science, then what is it? So, oh well, they're deliberately fooling the public. They're willfully fooling the public, as you just pointed out. So you're sitting here correcting me when they're willfully lying to the public. And you're harassing me about I'm not doing enough philosophy in my science. This is just such raggy bullshit. You're wasting my fucking goddamn time with this rubbish.
for espousing truths and beautiful insights of godly truth.
So again, they're not saying it's the truth that gravity waves from stars billions of light years away travel all the way to Earth and rattle our little mirrors and make a signal that we heard. That's not what they're saying happened. And they're not saying 3 solar masses of actual matter were converted into some sort of special new kind of super radiation that's not really bent space, and it's not really any kind of tons or any kind. It's, special radiation that fits right in the middle of nowhere. Totally unaccountable bullshit. Totally not consistent with any scientific principle that you seem to be horny for. You're saying the philosophy of science is you gotta have a fundamental principle. What's the fucking fundamental principle for converting matter into gravity? Where's that principle? Who made that one up? Where's the write-up on that shit? So again, and this won't be responded to. He won't answer these questions I'm asking. No, he'll just keep pretending that they have some sort of integrity in what they're doing, even though they're grotesquely lying to the public.
Truth to the layperson, yeah, but to the studied, they understand fully that things are true within certain amounts of truth.
Certain amounts of truth, yes. Well, whatever. This just doesn't mean anything. To argue that they're not arguing that duality exists, and that they're arguing that they're not arguing that entanglement exists. They're not. They're not humble at all on these subjects. They're just arguing about tweaks about, well, shall we contrive the silly notion of photons with radar to answer the question? Or shall we go with the other silly story of there's a million zillion universes created every millisecond? Which silly interpretation shall we use of our dumb and idiotic premise, which was somehow 2 photons went through the slits? A photon split in half and do magic tricks.
Within the context of the model.
Alright, so what's the context of the model for the idea of converting matter into gravity radiation, or whatever the fuck it was? What the fuck was it converted into? It made more amplitude. Where did the amplitude come from? How did you make more magnetism, so to speak? How did you make the magnet make more magnetism? By moving it.
Notably, the most annoying to me a little is the notion of a field. Okay? But granted the notion of a field...
No, we're done with that subject. Fields are made out of something, as I argue. Okay? If I say the word field, I'm obviously mean a field of photons or a field of some sort of the force bit, as I call them now. The force bits make the field. There's no magic fields. There's no just a field sits out there forever and doesn't do anything. No, there's a field of something that has to be pushed into the environment. You have to throw it out there, and then you have a field of it. So I take a handful of it, like confetti, and I throw it, and then there's a field of confetti.
The model of it, the mathematics and predictions that are supported after that.
And again, these self-serving predictions, like somehow that has any meaning or value when you haven't even tested the predictions thoroughly. Again, this prediction of Einstein's that light is bent by gravity still hasn't been proven to any substantial degree. The prediction of the antiparticle, has it really been predicted? Have we really proven the existence of those things when you think about what exactly they're using as the evidence, which is these cloud chamber images of what basically is particles plowing through material substances and creating a trail that's about, what, 1,000,000 times thicker than the particle is, and it's made of millions of photons being created by one little particle moving through this atomic material. I mean, it doesn't make much sense to think, well, look, we can see it doing it. No, we're seeing something created by a whole complex arrangement of atoms. We're not seeing the thing traveling somewhere, and yet they'll make all these conclusions. This is an antiparticle.
Makes it a good model. Of course, if you reject the notion of field, then what follows is absurdity.
Well, this is just silly. Yeah, to have this conversation. If you reject the existence of the ether, you're being absurd. The ether's proven. We've proven the ether exists. A field of nothing is an ether, idiot. So you're just saying that there's more complexity under the universe than in the universe. So the dumb, stupid galaxies doing all their dumb, stupid, retardedly simple things, all this simple mechanics in the universe isn't evidence of how the universe really works. It really works because there's special fields making everything happen. Fuck you, you're the idiot dupe. Where fucking show me one of your fucking fields.
But within the context of the truth of the notion of a field, the only squabble here is whether the field is fundamental, the notion, or emergent.
No, whether the field is made of something produced by goddamn something has to produce. So in the argument is there's the background cosmic background radiation. You don't say it's a field of radiation. No one calls it a field. No one says it has an interactive capacity in any field kind of manner, but that's the real source. The real source is there's a bunch of stuff in the environment and it's active. It's not some dead field that isn't part of the game. No, it's playing the game. It's going through the objects and creating gravity. It's going through the magnet and creating magnetism. It's the energy. The energy didn't come from the magnet. The gravity doesn't come from the mass. The mass doesn't make gravity. It causes gravity as a consequence of its interaction with the energy that's in the universe. Shit. People are dumb.
And you get no squabbles about these fundamental questions from a physicist who is philosophically adept also.
Oh, bullshit. You get a ton of squabble. But, I mean, yes, you can't even get to them to squabble with them about their silly ideas that binary stars can supernova and the next day they're still a binary star. No, I don't think so. I mean, would you just admit, okay, that in that gravitational lensing video for that really smart physicist to create this imbecilically insane scenario of a binary system and one of the elements in the binary system supernovas and then recollapses into a black hole and the other partner is still there exactly as they were, and then later it supernovas and collapses into a black hole and the other black hole is still right there, and now they're a binary black hole. Can you at least admit that's a preposterous explanation?
Is the insane anger which you reveal at notions of how can increasing speed create increasing amplitude, increasing speed,
Increasing gravity. More gravity. How does it make more gravity?
creates increase in frequency.
Again, frequency has nothing to do with the amplitude, asshole. Has nothing to do with the signal getting here. Okay, amplitude, amount. You need a huge amount to get here. It's like the brightness of the light in space. Okay, it's not about the frequency of its blinking doesn't get it here. What gets it here is how bright is it. And what gets a gravity wave here is how bright is it. How fucking big is the wave. And fucking speed doesn't make your wave bigger. There's no theory for that. Moving magnets doesn't make them more magnetic.
Well, I'll explain that to you. It depends on the nature of the substance with which you are passing through.
So this is going to be rich. Alright, so now he's going to explain how the black holes in the binary system spinning around each other somehow create more gravity than their mass would allow. Okay. They're going to convert their mass into gravity. And he's going to give me the explanation of how that works.
You don't reject the idea of being able to create an increased amplitude in a noise signal. Yeah? It is possible,
Yes, that's in a physical medium that you're pushing with higher velocity. So in atmosphere, I can create more amplitude by pushing more material. How is this relevant? You can't use mediums like water and air and compare them to empty space, or what magnets do. Magnetism is the same case as would you concede that the magnet creates the same thermodynamic or energy equation problem that gravity creates? That it's quite obvious that the sun doesn't burn matter to make gravity, the earth doesn't burn matter to make gravity, and it's clear magnets don't burn magnetism to make gravity. Unlike to make magnetism. Unlike things like radioactivity, where we know, yes, the actual chemical composition of the substance is degrading to create the radioactivity. Those photons we know to be real things being created by the matter. The mass of the thing gets to be less because it's creating this force. So again, you're continue.
Even with the incoming black hole around another black hole, accepting that it has a frequency and an amplitude, why that amplitude?
Well, the amplitude is completely based on how much gravity, how much mass the two things have. And again, by Maxwell's equations, by all the known physical equations, there's no known physical equation that says that this 60 mass number, okay, if I spin these two things around faster and faster, I change how I make them more gravitational, and a lot more gravitational. Not just twice as gravitational or 10 times, but maybe a million times more gravitational. That doesn't happen.
To do with and here it's in the model, the structure of the fluid. The ether.
Okay, so he's calling bent space ether anyway, so we got to go that far. Yes, and I'll concede, I have no capacity to conceive of what you're talking about as soon as you start talking about one of these magical mediums that somehow amplify effects. That somehow the energy goes in as some sort of poke, and somehow the field makes it bigger when it gets to the other end or something, or amplifies it, or does something. How exactly is that possible? You're not going to be able to explain how you did. Again, you're still going to have to explain how you poked the ether, what you poked it with, for it to transmit your poke to the other side. And we know it's the inverse square law. So how could it possibly change the equation at all? Making an ether, calling your radiation, your gravity radiation, ether radiation, doesn't help it any. It doesn't make you capable of making it stronger.
In this case, is termed space-time. It's a very peculiar ether. It's not an ether in the fluid sense, completely. But it has...
Well, it behaves just like a fluid going down a infinite drain. So, yeah, so in that sense, it's like a fluid, except, yes, it doesn't have any correlate in any other part of the physical universe we know of where you can have infinite drains.
Tensions in it, dimensional tensions, that are described by a 4x4 matrix, a very complicated mathematical object. Thus,
I'm not going to argue the things that, Einstein didn't undo all of Newton, The same rules still exist. The inverse square law exists, and the fact that you can't just synthetically poof gravity out of nowhere. You can't make it with a non-material event. You can't make a non-mass make gravity. There's no evidence of that. So I'm just saying again, how you're not going to be able to explain where you converted real energy, real photons, real radiation, real thermodynamic activity in matter, and somehow converted it into a gravity perturbation. You're just not, because it's not. There's no physics theory for that.
The analogy I would give straight off is, if you throw a ball a large soccer ball into the lake behind your motorboat, the faster your motorboat goes, the higher the wake will rise.
And again, this is a completely different force dynamic, right? Because you're not converting matter, you're using matter, and it's real matter given real velocity. And so again, you're saying that there's some physical reality that as the Earth does rotate quicker, that somehow it makes more gravity, a bigger wake in gravity. Then if that were true, then Newton would have noticed it. And Newton would have put it in his equations. But it's not in Newton's equations, and it's not in Einstein's equations. There's absolutely no evidence that they ever consider the velocity of the objects as increasing their gravity.
Now, there's no frequency here attached because it's not rotating around a thing. But with the model of two black holes colliding, you have both increasing velocity of a mass through a medium concept and increasing velocity in the frequency sense around the other body. Thus,
and they both don't mean anything because they're exactly the opposite. So they're a neutral as an energy event. They completely consume each other, essentially.
You get a rise in the amplitude and a rise in the frequency.
All right. Well, so he says there's a rise in the amplitude. Again, how is that accomplished? I see no evidence, unless you're going to say that the ether is actually a big, thick water ether. All right, and that somehow, as you move things quicker, you move the mass of the ether an equal amount. So the equal amount of your mass is transferred into the medium, and now the medium has mass. So now you're giving the ether mass, and you're transferring the mass of the object into the mass of the ether. And then you have to argue then you have to explain why your ether doesn't slow down things as they're traveling through it. You're going to have to do all of the Lesage arguments and explain how there wouldn't be a huge thermodynamic problem where everything's traveling through this big thick ether that's full of mass, because that's a mass equation again. But I just don't understand. Draw me a picture of how you convert physical matter into extra gravity. Show me one instance in anywhere in physics where physical matter makes super gravity. Show me that.
And it's just pure ignorance that you can't conceive of these things. You can't conceive of your lack of education and knowledge being a problem.
It's just, this is just bullshit. So again, I'll just point out, I'm the uneducated, lack of knowledge imbecile, and the physics professor is the guy saying two binary stars. Two stars are within 1 million or 2 million or 10 million miles of each other, rotating around each other. One of them goes supernova, and the other one stays right where it is. That's his fucking theory. That's his proposal. And I'm the imbecile. I mean, this is an outrageous, perversion of reality here. I'm the one arguing that there's absolutely no evidence that you can make a magnet stronger by moving it, that you can make the magnetism stronger by moving it. There's no evidence that you can move a planet faster and make the gravity coming off of it more powerful gravity. Absolutely no evidence. He says I'm being willfully ignorant not to understand that that's what happens, of course. Because there's a ton of evidence that what's happened. There's absolutely zero evidence. There's not one shred of evidence that happens. That just by moving something, I can make it do more of the thing it's doing. That I make a magnet filter more stuff by moving it. That I make a polarized film focus, polarize more light by moving it. The faster I move the polarized film, the more light it polarizes. Bullshit.
Here. Yes, you've learned a hell of a lot. You know a hell of a lot, right? But you're betrayed by the gaps in your knowledge. Everybody is.
And again, the gap of what knowledge? Show me the link to the goddamn theory. Show me the principle. Show me any evidence of any theory that was ever scrutinized by any rational human being that explains how you convert solar masses into gravity. Show it to me.
reasonable.
Show any kind of mass, that you turn any kind of mass into magnetism or gravity. Show me anywhere where mass is destroyed and it's converted into force. So show me where you destroy mass and turn into magnetism, or show me where you destroy mass and turn into gravity. Show me the theoretical principle that makes that possible. Or shut the fuck up.
Critical thinker is searching for somebody who is able to point out the gaps in your knowledge. That's my philosophy on life.
Yeah, whatever. So my gap in my knowledge is that I don't understand that speed, okay, that planets are really like motorboats plowing through the ether, okay, and the faster they go, the more gravity waves they create, the more disturbance in the gravity field they make. And Newton was just a dumbass for not realizing that. Oh. And Einstein also was a dumbass, because Einstein doesn't have any equation that makes any of this shit possible. That's just part of their lie, and you won't even admit that they're falsely using Einstein's name when Einstein didn't agree with any of this crap. This steaming crap.
I'm eager to meet somebody so arrogant that they can tell me how it is, and understand that he's more educated on this than me, and that if I suspect that I don't like what he's saying or disagree, that they recognize my inability to meet his points head on with refutation, and so either I go and study up to his level if I want to engage him, or
well, again, so your critique is you've somehow studied up on it, and you have the theory where I can convert this mass into pure magnetism, that I can somehow turn this mass into magnetism. Where do you have that alchemy?
I accept his wisdom to a degree, perhaps somewhat reservedly, but recognize the perspective he has is an informed perspective, spoken about authoritatively, knowledgeably. So I've been doing the
so we actually watched that LIGO video of the 60 symbols presentation of their theory, where there's absolutely no explanation for how you even create the scenario, and then the 60 symbols guys provided absolutely no explanation how increasing. I showed where the guy keeps saying amplitude when all he was talking about was how fast the two things are spinning, and so how does that convert into a amplitude of a signal rather than just an increase in the frequency? And I made that point directly in the video, and his response to my direct point being made is to just say, what, some sort of vacuous stuff, I'm ill-informed. That's his explanation. Or show me how you increase the amplitude of the gravity by increasing rotational speed. Show me the evidence of that anywhere in any physics theory. Show me it in any physics book. Show me it in any physics lecture. Show me any evidence of that being a reality, that magnets are stronger if I spin them.
More of the closer to truth videos. I recommend you go and watch these things for a broader philosophical insight.
Yeah, well, once again, as soon as you say the word philosophical, you just say diarrhea to me. That's all you're saying. You're just saying horseshit, and so why should I brain just totally turns off. This has nothing to do with any kind of philosophy. It has to do with whether or not you're going to get the accurate description of reality. You don't care about whether the model is accurate. You just care whether it somehow works. You're still able to walk straight. You don't care whether the shoes fit. You just care that you're still able to walk a little bit straight. I care that they fit.
A lot of it is disgusting lay talk, mind, but there are the odd people in there who you can't believe are there because they're just so insanely religious, and there's the odd person there who's never made it to the public fore before, and you think, wow, this guy's actually quite brilliant. Of course, he'll say the odd stupid thing, because my God, you're not as brilliant.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but whatever. I mean, clearly I make arguments on the internet. I make them in clear video form. Anybody can see the arguments and counter them. So I don't need to go look up a bunch of losers. Sorry. A forum full of Daftlodays who just keep making pronouncements about how they know the truth and they're going to educate you. I don't need any of that crap. Like I said, this is probably a huge waste of my time. But as I've pointed out, it's all I've got right now. But yeah, as soon as I have somebody who has some sort of capacity to actually make a fucking argument explaining how what Professor whatever his name is saying that these binary stars can go supernova and the system stays intact isn't completely ludicrous. I mean, somebody honest enough to say, yes, that's ludicrous. They should have cut that out of the video because he was just talking off the top of his head, and it's just such shit. I mean, no physicist should get caught with their pants that far down.
So, the reason, the psychological insight that is natural to guess at, the reason for this anger and this unwillingness to accept.
Listen to him. This unwillingness to accept that I have to accept their God theory that they haven't defended with a fact. I have to accept their crooked mathematics that doesn't even describe the accurate, what accurately happens in simple experiments with two little slits in a photon. They can't accurately describe simplest experiments on Earth, and yet I'm supposed to trust them on very complex experiments. They don't even test their instruments. They have a frickin' thing. They say we can detect the thickness of a proton, an atomic nucleus, moving with our gigantic mirror, and they don't even test it. Fuck you.
Science deals with models. Science knows it deals with models. Science expects its models. Certain,
There's no clear model here. They have 17 different models. They have 1,700 models. They don't have any coherent model. Again, where are all these I mean, I could just go into the particle thing, and I could say, where are all these anti-electrons, anti-protons, anti-neutrons, anti-atoms? Where are all this mass? Where is it all? And why, if it's anti and it behaves in every way just like the real thing, then why doesn't it have mass? There's no accounting. There's loose ends all over the fucking place. It's just garbage. All right, you want to believe it? Fine. I'm saying there's no reason to accept all these logical, incongruous, nonsensical premises. The bent light, the magic increase in magnetism because I move the magnet.
Through that best models, it expects them to be replaced. The fact that you're...
I mean, this is just such nonsense. They expect them to be replaced. Like they're not arguing their truth. Again, just fill in right there a clip of the Jim Alkahiri guy in this Atoms video, the Atoms series. Go find the three Atom 1, Atom 2, Atom 3. He doesn't go 2 sentences without saying the greatest discovery ever, the greatest truth we ever discovered. It's just the whole thing is full of it. There's no way you could disagree. Most scientists know.
I'm willing to hear this. And the fact that you're so enthusiastic to get angry over things that you've not had explained to you yet.
Oh, fuck you. I'm angry because this is ludicrous. To have to argue with ideas and concepts third graders could debunk. The idea of black holes being formed in binary systems that stay intact. Yeah, it's fucking so goddamn retarded. I find this an insult to my goddamn intelligence that I have to take my logical theory and somehow turn it into gibberish that you morons can understand because you can't understand how ludicrous that statement was. I mean, holy fuck. Yes, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off that I have to have the indignity to sit there and argue with you imbeciles. People who are so dishonest that they can't just say, you know what? That guy seems like a really smart guy, but if he can say something that fucking stupid, maybe he shouldn't be trusted. You can't even say that. That if his judgment is so bad that he could actually imagine a black hole being a supernova happening inside a binary system and it's staying intact, if he is dumb enough to think that's possible, maybe he's got some other flaws in his judgment. Fuck's sake.
You can espouse as though you're in command of the theory and the truth, and say this is how it is.
No, I've pointed out why I have a huge advantage. Is that my theory actually unifies physics, and it creates the simplest blueprint you could fucking imagine. It has the simplest frickin' mechanics. Just simple thing. Two polarizations, they cause, 4 different kinds of interactions. I mean, it's just so simple, and it unifies. That's a huge advantage, retard. And if you don't understand that as a huge advantage, I got no help for you. Because that's really all physics ever was looking for, was a nice, clean, simple explanation, because they knew that's probably how the universe works. It gets simpler all the way down, not more complicated all the way down.
It speaks to what I see, and that is a man who on the one hand who is saying this is how it is, and then on the other hand, when his model is challenged, because there's nothing personal, I'm not attacking you, he wants to play...
No, you're not challenging my model, you're challenging it in a completely unfair way. Like, where did the initial energy come from? What was the origin of the universe? Questions they're silly enough to try to answer, and because I'm not silly enough to make up crap, I could make up shit. I could just say, well, there's a giant leprechaun that always existed, and he stepped in, shillelagh poo, and he was scraping it off his shoe, and that was the origination of the universe. I could make up some fucking fairy story, and you're saying, well, your theory is bullshit because you're not willing to make up a fairy story about origins that can't be known. I mean, it's just amazing. Your critiques have nothing to do with my model of magnetism or my model of velocity or inertia or the mechanics of the interaction between electrons and protons or my model of gravity that completely explains how the acceleration is inductive. You're not arguing any parts of my real theory. You're arguing the parts that I'm not as big a crook and bum, in the sense that I won't speculate about things for which there's not one shred of goddamn useful evidence on. There's no useful evidence regarding creation.
Why are you attacking little old me? It's them who are dishonest. I've shown that they're so dishonest. I'm called DraftScience. Don't attack little old me. Oh, it's true, and the theory...
Again, so this is just another big fat lie from a fat head, okay? I love you to critique one of the actual points in my theory, but critiquing the part where I'm not as big a bonehead as to start speculating about how things that we have no evidence of function, yeah, I don't bother with that.
Doesn't say this, and you're still harping on about how Einstein never said this. I said, look, the solution, Einstein made a question and asserted solutions and possibilities will be.
No, his papers were really simple, okay? So let's not say he was saying a whole complex thing. And so, yes, he laid a foundation. But clearly, what they've turned it into is completely nothing. It has no resemblance to what Einstein was arguing. So I mean, to say they haven't gone way beyond what the theory proposed in terms of the geometry even thing, or the relationship between time and space, they've gone way beyond that to create wormholes and all kinds of other bullshit. So don't pretend this is Einstein's theory just improved. No, it's Einstein's theory perverted into a grotesque monstrosity.
Will adhere to this. Will conform to this conformity. No.
It's not a rational improvement of Einstein's foundation to make up a non-existent mechanism for the conversion of mass into bent space. It's not there. And to call it proving Einstein right, that's what they say. We're proving Einstein by finding gravitational waves. This doesn't prove Einstein. It doesn't. They haven't even proved the wave, let alone prove Einstein.
Adhere to this principle, this question, right? The equation of Einstein's general relativity is not so much of an equation of answers in the normal high school sense of equations and formulas. It is in the same sense of differential equations and perhaps simultaneous equations, posing another question where you say, what's the solution? Yeah, or what are the solutions?
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, we know that Einstein didn't even do most of the math, so whatever. But who cares? The only thing that's important is what the relationship and mechanism proposed is, and that's kind of clear. So you can't undo that.
It's actually not recognizing it as an equation, but recognizing it as a puzzle to be solved. Now, Einstein didn't solve, and it's got an infinity of solutions, and perhaps differentially.
Look, it's not just that it has an infinity. Oh, fuck, I hate when that happens. It's not just that it has an infinity of solutions, it's that it creates the potential for infinities, because it's not complete. The formula doesn't have stops against preposterous going way beyond the limits of the device. It's like having a radar gun with a certain scope, and then your formula keeps going beyond where the radar can possibly even point. So this whole idea of we're just going to say we can create an infinite amount of gravity. There's nothing in the evidence that demonstrates that's what the universe is doing, or the whole universe would have collapsed into a black hole by now. So clearly that's not what the universe does. It doesn't love infinities.
Infinity of solutions, and perhaps differential equations can have infinity of solutions. But you understand that?
I mean, the solutions, the idea of having a solution where you say x, y, z, w by 555, and then your solution is equals w, w, x, 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 w, w. That's, to me, is not a solution. So until you put real numbers in this slop and actually do an equation, I mean, all of this nonsense about what kind of this slop equals this slop. There, we've solved all the universe's problems by having slop on this side and slop on that side. It's just fucking slop.
That in certain contexts, many solutions are just uninteresting, like stupid. Right? Now, Einstein, if you have no reason to not accept.
Yeah, uninterestingly stupid. What he means is multiverses, wormholes. I mean, you can just go on and on. Antiparticles. Yeah, I think that's just nonsensical solutions.
An educated person saying Einstein derived this wave equation from his this solution to his equations in 1916, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, the original paper, and then that was the improved paper. But anyway, I really don't want to go into this whole the details of the fact that gravity gets complicated when you have to put it in motion. And that's the only complexity in Einstein's equations, is the idea of representing motion in equations is always complicated. It always requires you to cheat, because you can't do it millisecond by millisecond by millisecond. You have to jump through the process of time and make assumptions and approximations, and those approximations have to somehow round off to make the round edges and all the rest of the stuff you need. So that's the only complexity in the equation, but the basic variables going in are all variables we know. So they're not complicated. The key relationship is the fact that the objects absorb acceleration. They absorb energy to accelerate, all right, and that energy is something they can release if they impact each other. That part is clear.
no legitimate reason except that it's willful. I know, but accept that. It's like you got one book on Einstein, you read lots of Einstein on the thing, but the, uh, the academic works professionally with notebooks and produces lots of shit that he's really happy with, yeah, and dates it and moves on, yeah, and he produces endless amounts.
Yes, and Einstein even produced mistakes and errors because he tried to accommodate things that he probably shouldn't have tried to accommodate. And it's always a mistake to be made. And I would argue that Einstein tripped over the very bullshit that we're talking about. Okay, Einstein was badgered by this stupid particle wave duality. But I don't think there was anything in Einstein that really wanted to play any of that game. He knew there was something fundamentally wrong with the game, all right, and he was forced to play it. And I think that's the very problem with physics, is it doesn't just sit back and say, wait a minute, I think we have to resolve this first. We can't really sit there and start building on this idiotic notion that it's this or this depending on circumstances. Because that's just a bullshit fucking premise. And they should have fixed those premises before they strangled all of their intellectual capital on creating all of these solutions to problems. And the problem was they have a wrong premise. And there is no fucking duality. It's either a particle or it's a wave. And they should have resolved that question.
Of stuff. Murray Gell-Mann on his talks talks about how much he produced, and a friend of his said you should have published way more, right? And so if somebody in one avenue has researched, and the thing is, they don't do it willy-nilly. They actually do endeavour to credit the first person, yeah? And sometimes some of the whole historic notions do get mixed up, and somebody's name becomes attached to something, and it becomes too entrenched. But even then, the best of the science
and their biases, their biases are found out too. So all these people had huge biases in what they wanted the truth to be. And so again, you're arguing as if they are doing some legitimate pursuit of truth thing. And no, they go into it with a huge bias. And I guess somebody could argue I went into it with a bias in the sense that I'm biased towards the simple, rational definitions, because I don't think the universe gets more complex as you get deeper into the infrastructure. The foundation is concrete. The foundation isn't video players and computers and heating and thermostats. No, the foundation is rock. It's simple. And that was my bias. And their bias is exactly the opposite, in the sense they want to make the foundation into singularities and this some sort of hope idea of a universe that has some internal purpose.
Somebody got screwed here. It got his name, but he did it way before, or he was the pioneer of it, or whatever. As you know yourself, right? But
yes, well, that's really true with the whole anti-particle thing. You find out that your guy already had photographed the damn thing 5 years before the guy who got credit for discovered it. So yeah, it is all quite bogus. And Lesage was basically just, he actually took the dead guys. He went to his apartment, took all of his papers. I mean, obviously wasn't his theory. It was the French guy, the Forgy guy or whatever. It was his theory, and here it's called Lesage. Yeah, I mean, that's just a ripoff, clearly.
The very fact that we know this means people are out there trying to give honest credit. So if somebody's trying to credit Einstein with the inside, you better goddamn know that it's false before you start getting angry at it.
Well, I do know it's false. So again, I better damn well know it's false. I do damn well know that Einstein never proposed you could convert mass into pure gravity, any kind of gravity radiation, because Einstein knew there's no energy in gravity. Gravity is like magnetism. The magnet doesn't make the gravity. The effect happens around the magnet. So there's some other thing that is the carrier, that is the energetic component of the mechanism. And the same argument goes for gravity. Einstein knew gravity wasn't converting mass into gravity. He knew that wasn't happening. So I'm just saying, for these guys to propose, we're proving Einstein, and imply that somehow Einstein theorized that you can convert mass into gravity radiation energy is bullshit. And because you people won't call bullshit doesn't mean I shouldn't, because it's the right thing to do, because it is bullshit. They're just using Einstein's name to give their own theories credibility. It's not Einstein's theory, it's their theory. Einstein never suggested it. Einstein would hate it. And they're talking as if it's something Einstein endorsed, and you don't see the corruption in that. It's their theory, and they're afraid to put their own name on it. They're afraid to say Kip Thorne says you can convert mass into gravity. Not Einstein. Einstein doesn't say that. This stupid guy who pissed away $1 billion says that.
Angry denial. Angry denial of something that you can't demonstrate to be false. Well, that's false for yourself. That's lying and dishonest.
I can only demonstrate their credibility issues. So I can demonstrate that, well, it's a glaring error when they start talking about binary systems, supernovae, and yet staying a binary system. Now, when they start saying that, I have dented their credibility, no doubt about it. All right, and I can bring up the points over and over again. You have no fact. You have no evidence. Not one shred of fucking evidence. Not one experiment. Not one anything that demonstrates the capacity to turn motion into more gravity or motion into more magnetism. It can't happen. It doesn't happen. There's no evidence that it ever happens. And to use it as a foundation for some preposterous notion that, well, we can make our math work if we create this fake huge amount of energy, then we can overcome the inverse square law. And that's the only reason why the three solar masses are involved in the equation at all, is because if they don't create a preposterous amount of energy, there's no way the wave gets here. And you're the dupe to think the truth is anything other than that. It's a contrivance. It's dark matter. It's a made-up premise to make it possible for the math to work. The math can't work without the fake amount of energy, and then even that, even if you accepted the existence of this fake theory, of this fake evidence, then I'm pointing out that they don't understand what the consequence of that is. The release of that much energy in one location, okay, in 1 millisecond, would evacuate a huge hunk of space. There's no way you can release that much energy without fracturing everything within hundreds of millions of light years. It can't happen any other way. It's a preposterous theory. And you're just sitting there, blah, 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 blah. Tell me some more. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, did you lick your ass? Because that tastes like ass. But I like ass. You just keep eating this shit.
The quality of your truths. So, these exact calculations, and you can understand, because of I suspect, the great many solutions, and it is the case with differential equations. I mean, that's
again, these great many solutions. The variables going in are not complicated. The principles involved are not complicated. And the only thing that makes any of this crap possible, as stated, if they used Einstein's math and they used Einstein's theory, which is gravity waves are possible in this limited sense, that an object rotating is closer and then further, and that constitutes a change in the intensity or amplitude which you need to create a frequency. You have to have a change in amplitude for there to be a frequency, so yes, you will create a wave when you have a change in amplitude. That's the extent of Einstein's opining on the subject. All right, now you show me where legitimate tested process came up with some other physics that's possible besides something they invented, some dark matter invention, some contrivance they've added to make this mean three solar masses were converted into gravity.
You get all these possible solutions, and it actually being impossible sometimes to the most complex partial differentials and non-linear differential equations, that they have to be solved by a supercomputer, right? Or computer.
Yeah. And again, that's just because of this stupid problem where, calculating the motion of this from here to here completely, that is completely, would require a supercomputer because there's so many actions that are happening in that motion. But that's not the theory. The theory is just about the simple part that there's a certain amount of mass that goes from point A to point B and it goes over time, and that there's a certain amount of probabilistic jitter and jabber and movement and random this and this and this, and so you have to include all of those little elements. But the more precise you try to be, the more calculations you're going to have to do. You can calculate once every second, or you could calculate every half second, or every quarter second, or every eighth of a second. See, it's an infinite amount of depth you could go into the calculation. That doesn't mean the calculation has more integrity, because if the principles are wrong, the calculation is meaningless. So who cares what the differential equation says if you have a stupid dark matter figure in there, or you have your wave duality bullshit, or your silly Heisenberg, or your nonsensical Huygens factor, where you fudge the variables, where you've changed the width of the slit into the width of the impediment. Silly notions like that, that somehow this formula is still rational, when it's not rational, it's not reasonable. It's incredulous.
But this is the problem we have in emulating your kind of theory and discrete kinds of theory. Perhaps our computing capabilities aren't up to it. But these guys use supercomputers to
Yeah, you're not going to need any supercomputer. And as I stated before, much of the variables we agree on. So many mathematical... I'm not disagreeing with Einstein's equations. Again, in my opinion, they're the ones disagreeing with him. Einstein says you're never going to see the wave because it's so fucking minuscule. It's so weak. It has no amplitude. They turned the physical reality into some new reality because, unlike Einstein, their theory is you can convert mass into waves. You can blow the mass up and entirely reduce all the electrons, protons, and neutrons, convert them into bent space. It's not a theory that's been tested. It's not a theory that's even been exposed to the public. It's just declared as the new reality. And you're just sitting there, give me some more shit. I love shit. Chunky shit. Yeah, and especially when you add in some stuff about binary suns supernovaing and still staying together because they're really good friends. Even though you supernovaed, I hung in there and stood by you. They're silly fables.
Model the supreme, graphics of black holes colliding.
Yeah, right. Graphics of imaginary Little Red Riding Hood stories. Yes, it's really nice when the Little Red Riding story has images in it. I can see the little, I can see Papa Bear with his hat on, and he's smoking a cigar, and Mama Bear's got her little hat on with a flower in it. And yeah, it helps a lot when there's fucking images in the nursery rhyme. But this is a fucking nursery rhyme, and the fact that you're falling for it, that's to your liability. That you don't demand any kind of better evidence than this crap, okay, for these bold assertions. We can detect the movement of an atomic nuclei. Even though we've never tested the instrument on a single atomic nuclei in the real world. We'll just tell you we're sure we can do it. Especially when we've completely rigged the math to make it possible.
Anyhow, I thought I needed to get that off my chest.
Yes, well, it's like the rest of the shit. You just peel it off your chest and shove it in your fucking mouth and just eat the garbage. You fucking poo eaters. Well, that was tedious. But anyway, it's just not, there's nothing. The last video, like I said, I liked the 60 symbols, guys. But the last few subjects, they're just gaping holes in what they're saying. I haven't even got to their I'd love to. I have to get to their magnetism video, see if they have any videos on magnetism, because I'm sure they fuck that in the ass. But I mean, this crap they presented on the subject of gravitational waves was so bad. And I pointed it all out. I explained to you why this is just not real physics. There's no real physics here. And I illustrated it perfectly, and I showed a real physicist saying things that were absolutely ludicrous in defense of this non-existent physics. That's how obvious it is that it's not real physics, is that when he was put on the spot and he had to actually explain it, he just started talking complete shit. I've done my job. It's your job to be a little bit fair, a little bit reasonable, and say, yeah, that's not what physics should look like. Physics should look better than talking absolute shit. Anyway, till next time and such. Hopefully this recorded okay. And, each time there's some error. Hopefully there's no glaring ones in this one.